Welcome to the fourth season of Heard, Afros Audio Interview Series. My guest today is Brandon Collins. How are you today, man?
I'm well, man. Despite the world falling apart around me, family's good, my health is good, so I can't complain too much.
Yeah, I get that completely. It's challenging to do the work, show up while the world burns. So I completely get it. I actually wrote an ebook about how to not lose your mind as the world burns. And it goes beyond self-care. It's really about recentering and recognizing what you can and only you can do.
100%.
So it's really important for us to be mindful of what's happening in the world, but also if it's not happening to you, what's the opportunity that you have to create and make this world a better place as an individual. That's something that we still have access to, but I understand completely. Let's talk about you.
Okay.
Yeah, introduce yourself for the people, and how do you describe the work that you do?
Yeah, I'm a writer, comedian, podcaster, show producer. I've been doing that since I was in high school. So it's been weird because I've been doing a lot of interviews lately and they're like, tell me about your life. And I'm like, how far back do you want to go? Because I've been doing like teaching and like performing since before I even knew about like adult stuff, like sex and stuff and like things like that. And like I describe the work I do is like it's edutainment, especially the live stuff like with Drunk Black History, even my movie review podcast to an extent, because I like to go really like nerdy with like trivia and like how things came to be. Like if we see a movie that we don't like on the screen, like how did it mess up? Because no one sets out to make a terrible movie, right? So what happened in production? But with Drunk Black History specifically, it's to highlight Black historical figures and events that just haven't gotten their due, that aren't mainstream, so to speak. So we're not talking about Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or even Prince, because I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So if I had a really eccentric teacher during Black History Month, that's what they would talk about. They would talk about like Prince. I remember one time like a person talked about Lenny Kravitz. That 5 album just came out. He's, oh yeah, Lenny Kravitz of Brooklyn. He's biracial. Let me tell you kids about this. But yeah, that's kind of the work I do. Like I'm a full-time creative now. So producing Drunk Black History is a big part of that, as well as writing all the time. My wife actually quoted Hamilton to me when I was editing a script the other night. She's like, why are you writing like you're running out of time? I'm like, one, I'm a Black man. I always feel like I'm running out of time. And 2, I love this. It's like, it's been really incredible for me the past few years to really find my passion and be driven by that. Even if the money's not quite there yet, I know it will come because I'm so into this and I see my drive. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of answering your question.
No, that's cool, man. I love that you self-identify. There's a lot of folks who are writers who will never say out their mouth, I'm a writer, and I do the work. It's those things where we do grow into our identity and the ability to say it with our chest. This is who I am. This is what I do. And you're doing it well. Kudos to you.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Talk about Drunk Black History a bit. What made you want to build it in the first place?
Yeah, Drunk Black History started off, no pun intended, in a drunk conversation with an old friend of mine. We can get into that if you want to, like the old co-host of Drunk Black History in 2016-ish. And we were talking about our different experiences growing up, like learning about Black history. I grew up in a relatively conservative family and identity just wasn't really talked about, which is wild because I grew up in the suburbs surrounded by white kids where I was like the only Black kid in my class typically. And my family never talked to me about that. And my family never talked to me about Black history. I had to learn from school or movies and such. Like I learned about Rosewood through the John Singleton movie. And that's a heavy way for a 10-year-old to learn about some Black history. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've seen Rosewood recently, but holy shit. And so like realizing that we had 2 different experiences with Black history and not everyone knows the same stories or even knows about a lot of our history and the inventions and cool things that Black people have done for this country. It was like, hey, why don't we do this comedy show where we can talk about these topics? They're a little bit heavy, so let's incorporate some drinking so people aren't as tight-lipped or reserved in their thoughts on like where we are as society as they could be if we didn't have any drinking. And so that's where Drunk Black History came into. And then I've been doing it solo since 2020, and it really has been incredible the way it just took off, of like me being able to take full ownership of everything, which I already had, but like actually like embracing being the only person, because for a long time, like my projects, I always had a co-host. Whether it's Medium Popcorn, I did this successful stand-up comedy show called Comedy Outliers that ran in New York City for about 10 years or so. And I always had a co-host with me because I was always nervous about being on stage by myself. I'm like, I don't have the personality. I don't have the wittiness. Like I can't carry a show by myself. But ever since I took it on, like hosting myself, like we had sponsors, we were featured in New York Comedy Festival, traveling, being able to have the opportunity to be at Afro Audio Podcast Festival, all these incredible things. And so it's grown a lot. There's some incredible things on the horizon this year, knock on wood, that I've been having some great conversations about. And it's just been a great marriage of my love of education and my love of comedy. I ironically started both at the same time when I was in high school. I was hired for a not-for-profit in Ann Arbor, Michigan to teach sex ed to middle school and high school students. Now imagine teaching sex ed to your peers and the girl you trying to hook up with. So you have to develop this sense of humor. And then my high school had a huge budget for theater. And so they actually were able to hire a local comedian to teach high school kids stand-up and sketch comedy. So that's where I like learned to basically do like an SNL type of show, and ended up actually producing our own show senior year in high school, which like is a independent film script that I'm writing that I want that to be my first film that I make. But yeah, like Drunk Black History is something that started off with one drunken conversation. It's huge now. It's incredibly fulfilling, and I love meeting people on the road and like getting to share these stories and meeting relatives of people that we talk about, which has been incredible. That's awesome as well.
It is really cool, man, and it's super dope that you had this foundational period in your life. You don't even know why this comedian is at your school, and turns out it's your life's work. You know, that the fact that this even opened up for you, which is unique. It's not everywhere. These opportunities show up, but it happened for you.
Yeah, and that's one thing I would definitely like implore for anyone listening to this is if a random opportunity comes your way, just see what happens, man. If it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to be like inconvenience to your life. Just see what happens, because that's how so many things in my life have worked out. Where I was like, I went to a comedy show at the high school and I was like, wait, there's teens doing this at our school? Like, how did I not know about this? And then the next week I went to the sign up, and within a year, I'm the co-president of it, right? The peer education thing. I don't even know how I found out about that job, but I learned about it. I was like, I think I could teach like middle school students. And they're like, yeah, you're going to teach, but like also sex ed. I was like, that's wild. But I got to skip school. I got paid to do it. You know what I mean? Imagine like you don't have to go to science class your junior year in high school because you're going to teach sex ed like to a school across town. Like, all right, sure. Yeah, I'm not going to turn that away.
Absolutely. And this is before like ChatGPT, where you could even look up your answers before you go to teach.
I had to know all the bodily fluids that could transmit HIV. I had to know all the steps of putting on condoms and abstinence, all that stuff. It's so weird, bro. Like when I think about it now, like it's part of my stand-up where I'm like, was I like meant to be deterrent for like sex activity? Because you're like, why would they do that? You know?
But it's helpful. I'm sure it was helpful for you as a hormonal growing young man to learn things, because there's a lot of misinformation amongst peers.
100%.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Right? It's
100%.
So that you're the right person for the job if you're going to inform them correctly. So that's what's up, man. I love that. So you work across comedy, writing, live shows, as you've already mentioned. Why did podcasting become an important part of how you tell the stories?
Podcasting was something that I embraced relatively early. Like it's wild because when I was a manager at Kaplan Test Prep, I used to do these in-person professional developments with my K-12 instructors. But these are younger folks that were like still in college, so they had the flexibility in their schedule to meet in person and get training on best practices for classroom management, pedagogical techniques, and things like that. I got promoted to the graduate programs, like that was GRE, LSAT, and stuff like that. And a lot of those are adult teachers, like they have full-time jobs and they did this as like a side gig. And they couldn't come in person at professional development. So I was just getting into podcasting, learning what that was about. And I was like, okay, let me buy like a snowball microphone and I'll do the professional development as a podcast. And so that was the innovation. I was actually able to like interview the CEO at Kaplan and like all these people and had them as guests on this podcast. And that was like incredible. And so at the time I was producing that Comedy Outlier show I was telling you about, and we had access to so many comedians. I was like, why don't we like have these guests on and talk about their stories, their journeys in comedy? Like we had Michael Che on, Pete Davidson on, Jermaine Fowler, Kevin Barnett, RIP, all these incredible people. And that's how I learned how podcasts can be used as a storytelling medium. And so with Drunk Black History, initially it was just a seasonal live show because I put a lot of work into producing the show, researching for the show, booking the show. And I was just like, man, if I try to add a podcast, I'm going to burn out real quick. But then I realized there's only so much space in the calendar where I could do live events and tell as many Black stories as I can. So that's why I was like, we got to start doing the podcast. I have to make that work in my schedule. And so it's incredibly effective because it's like you sit down with somebody for a longer time than I can on a live show. A live show guests typically are on stage for max 15 minutes. maybe before the audience gets a little restless and you have to keep it moving, right? Whereas in a podcast, you can sit, you can talk about the guest, their background with Black history in more depth, why they chose their topic in more depth, and as well get into the nitty gritty of certain people and stories that you can't in a live performance. So podcasting is absolutely vital storytelling medium right now, especially for Black history. And so that's why I've embraced it. I'm actually putting out even more podcast episodes than I was before.
Nice. I love that, man. And you also did something that many folks don't do, which is live shows first. Like that was before the podcast, whereas people incorporated it later. What do you think has been the benefit of that for you specifically?
For me specifically, it was showing that there's an audience for it. You know, I think sometimes when you do podcasting, like our numbers aren't like insane or anything like that, but they're decent. But like in doing the live show and seeing people coming out for sold out shows, I'm like, okay, so at least if people are willing to like come out their house to travel to this venue to go to the show, I'm sure some people would be willing to like download an episode that like gives them more in-depth information about Black historical figures and events. And it just showed me like, hey, if I put in the work and I keep doing it, like there is audience and we'll see what happens, but it's something that fulfills me. It's something that's important to me and I'm just going to keep doing it. I mean, no one can tell me no at this point. No one's going to take a microphone away from me. It's the same thing I do every Friday. If you follow me on social media or follow official Drunk Black History on Instagram, every Friday there's a new video called This Week in Black History. It's not This Week in Black History in 1968 or something like that. It's no, this week, this Black history was made. Or we lost, unfortunately, these Black historical figures and pioneers. I do that every Friday because it's important. I think people need to know like the incredible things that are happening now, despite what you hear in the conservative media and from the White House and everything like that. And I hope I answered your question.
That social proof is one important just for the business, but the connection too, like to your audience and really getting to the heart of that helps to inform the work. Podcasting is this intimate dance between your listener and you, and so
absolutely
what makes it more, you know, like, okay, this is working besides a live show that says, okay, we'll come out for that because we enjoy everything else that you're doing. So that's cool.
Yeah, man.
Mixing humor with Black history, as you mentioned, is not the simplest thing to do, right?
No.
You get a little loose lip with alcohol, that supports.
Yep.
The liquid courage. But what drew you to that balance, and what do you think comedy allows you to do that other formats don't?
What drew me to the balance, just naturally, I just make comedic observations and stuff. I'm very much into observational humor, like category of comedians and everything. You just tell me a story, like I'm going to find something wild about it or something that like makes me chuckle or make me like want to explore something like a little weird detail a little bit more. And so I was like, it's a no brainer to do that. With Drunk Black History, I think the comedy kind of comes naturally out of unfortunately, the sad parts of the stories too, because if you don't laugh, you cry, right? And no one wants to see just grown people on stage crying. We try to make jokes about it or at least throw it back at the people that were oppressive forces in whatever story we're telling. And I think it's a good balance because it's cathartic for the audience. It's cathartic for myself and the guests, depending on what we're talking about. And it just helps provide some hope. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can say things that maybe some audience members feel is a little preachy, but if you do it through humor, it's more palatable and more universal, I think. And so that's where that comes. And like I said, I just naturally like to find humor and stuff. I don't do the fucking cringe or mean-spirited humor. That's not in my DNA at all. And so I know if I'm trying to make a joke, it's always in service of trying to legit make someone laugh and put a smile on their face. It's all in good spirit and to elevate what we're talking about or who we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's a different way, and it's super dope as you as an educator, as a background too. Recognizing that there are different ways in order to educate, right?
100%.
Kudos to you. I was super impressed, pedagogical, just off your tongue like that, because I always back off of that word. Like, I don't know if I'm saying that shit right, so I just go back to self-taught.
I hear you.
So that was super impressive. I just wanted to make a note of that. But yeah, man, to have that understanding of there are different ways that people grasp information and retain it, because that's, you can 100%. Read it all day long, you can hear it, but retaining it is its own animal. And so to marry humor with the conversations that most of them at this point, we've heard a lot of stories. There's always 100%. A surprise when it's, oh shit, I've never heard of that person or that. And I'm talking about those of us who are older and have done our own see, I don't want to say it. We self-taught around.
I hear you there. I hear that. Yeah, like I think that's one of the things I love after each show, each event I do, whereas people are like, I had a good time, but I also learned something.
Absolutely.
Like, I know that I did my job if I'm being told I learned something. Because the last will come. I've been booking less comedians and more podcasters, field experts, other creatives. And so we do lean a little bit more into really focusing on the educational portion of the show. But the comedy just naturally comes there from interacting with other people, interacting with audience members, especially the ones that are drunk, everything like that. So I don't even worry about whether or not people are going to laugh. I really care about making sure we get as many of the facts right as possible. That's why, like, I have some drinks, but I'm not drunk because the guests can be drunk, the audience can be drunk, but I need to know stuff because if someone messes up and says an incorrect thing, I need to find a way to correct that without making the person like shut down or feel like I'm calling them out. You know what I mean? Because I don't want anyone from the audience to like Google something and be like, that's not right. You know what I mean? Because then you lose credibility with that person, then it's hard to get them back. I take it very seriously despite it being a comedy show. But like I said, it just naturally comes in conversation. I think if anyone takes time just to get to know another person and talk about their background, talk about what interests them, what frustrates them, there's always going to be comedy in that. And if you don't find that, then I don't know what to tell you.
For sure. Yeah. And so you've been doing this for long enough to see the shifts in attention, platforms and audiences. What keeps you coming back to the work, the live stage, the podcasting? What keeps you coming back to it?
It's my life, man. I've loved it ever since I was 15 years old, being on stage. I was on stage before that. In middle school, I was doing plays and musicals while also doing karate and stuff. I was always doing new stuff that interests me. And so when podcasting first came out, I was like, oh yeah, this is interesting. Like, it's my way of being like my own radio host. Like when I was growing up, my mom would play like Mitch Albom and like other like popular radio hosts and stuff like that. So I always like was enthralled by that, and getting the opportunity to do that was really cool. And it's a way I actually found my comedic voice. You know, before I started writing full time, like I found my comedic voice through doing podcasting, finding out what I say, what I observe, and how I express myself, and how that can make people laugh. And what I love most about Drunk Black History is a lot of the guests I have on the show, whether it's the live show or the podcast, I've never met before. Like meeting them in that moment and being able to connect with them is just something that brings me such joy and makes me feel like I have a purpose. You know what I mean? I've been studying like a lot of popular radio hosts and like podcasters and stuff just to understand how they interview people, how they ask questions. Some people find that like really nerdy and be like, yo, you spend all your time just listening to other people. I'm like, I'm learning how to get deeper in someone's story, how to really pull out stuff. He has a problematic past and says some wild stuff, but Howard Stern, man, like I studied all of his episodes. I subscribed to Sirius. I listened to every record I could get and listen to his interviews to be like, why do people consider him the best interviewer? Okay. And it's because he lets himself be vulnerable. And that's something that actually I've been bringing to the stage like unconsciously since the beginning of Drunk Black History, where I would ask someone, especially in the past, is think ignorant questions, but I'm like, no, I'm trying to make sure that if someone in the audience is, I hope they ask this question because I don't know and I'm embarrassed to ask someone else, I'll ask that question for them on stage.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Because it's all about education at the end of the day. Yes, I want people to laugh, but again, I really want people to learn and be able to take someone away and share those stories accurately with other people. Yeah. You don't want a game of telephone with Black history.
No doubt. You definitely don't want that.
You know what I mean?
Because there's a lot of smart people in our community. They will be like, that ain't right. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Which is a good thing because it keeps you honest. That's great. And I definitely resonate with the connection in and of itself, learning more. It's so expansive. After a conversation, you're like, oh, I can expand in that way, or I can consider it this way, or I feel uplifted, or I felt that type of energy. I want to make sure don't nobody feel that from me. You know what I mean? Whatever it looks like.
Exactly. You know, yeah.
It's super important. So for sure, allowing yourself to expand with other folks, that is the mutual benefit of it all, having these guests. So definitely I appreciate that. And that's the work, right? We're here. You have this great platform and many people are aspiring to move into live shows. It's having a conversation with you opens up that possibility, allows them to see inside.
Yeah, and I think also, you know, we mentioned the sketch comedy stuff I did in high school. It's wild how much that changed my life. Like I do say all the time when people ask me like legitimately, why comedy? Why do stand-up and sketch? In high school, I was going through a really dark time. Like all that stuff came to a head. I talked about growing up in the suburb and like feeling isolated and not knowing my place. It put me in a very dark place in high school because a lot of family stuff happened where I felt like I couldn't trust my family and I didn't know what I was going to do in my life. I was just lost and very angry. And comedy gave me an outlet for all of that. right? Like without comedy, I probably wouldn't be talking to you. I probably even wouldn't honestly be here. I think I was careening towards a very bad place. And what that led to was, long story short, junior year for the sketch comedy group, we did the show because it was Michigan. We did a parody. So all the shows were like titled. So we did our 5th show in September of my junior year in high school. It was called like 5 Deadly Chins or something like that. That was the name of the sketch comedy show. 6 Mile was the next show, and it was a parody of 8 Mile, which just came out. And it was the biggest show the school had. Like kids were sitting in the aisles. Like, it was packed out, and we killed that. Talib. I still think about the high of that show and performing sketches and stand up. Our local comedian, who was our director, he then went crazy and fully took over control. Like, the next show, he didn't let us write any sketch. There's gonna be no stand up. He basically made us do a play about reality TV, which was really bad. He made one of the kids like a pedophile character. It was off the rails, bro. Like, I bombed on stand up before, but there's nothing like bombing sketch comedy for an hour straight. And so after that, like, the group disbanded basically because we were like, we're never going to do that again. And then I was going to a school called Community High School in my town, and they had a theater. And I'm like, does anyone do anything in this theater? And my teacher was like, no, not really. I think you could rent it out if you wanted to. I was like, okay. And so I got the group together and I was like, let's just do our own show. We know how to do this thing. And that was the beginning of me producing live events. That was the beginning of me learning how do you effectively market an event that like people don't know about. How do you start from the beginning, raising awareness about this thing coming, getting people to not only know about the event, but buy tickets for the event, go to the event, make sure they attend. Because you know how it is. Sometimes people buy tickets for something, but they don't show up. So that makes you look crazy to the talent because you're like, the numbers were supposed to be here, guys. It's not my fault. And so like that whole period really changed my life because that started me producing events. And so when people were seeing Drunk Black History taking off on the live, they would come to me after the show and be like, how the fuck did you get all these people here? And I'm like, I've just been doing this for so long, man. I couldn't even break it down step by step at this point. It's just natural to me how to market events and things.
And becoming natural is something that was once so foreign. What the hell is happening here? Mm-hmm. And how do I do it? And that's the power of moving forward anyway. And I think a lot of creators, I've been a life coach since 2015. I've worked with so many people, especially creators. Yeah. I know how we act. I know how we do. I know how we think. Yep. So let's support. And it's that how part that just keeps people on the sidelines forever. How is this going to work? How am I going to get tickets? If you don't just jump in the damn ring already and allow it to unfold. Yeah.
And you're going to fail sometimes. You'll mess up sometimes. There's times when I have a great formula and I tried something new and it doesn't quite work out. I fall on my face or I don't get the turnout I'm looking for. And I'm fortunate enough to have my wife who's, you probably shouldn't do that again. Or I told you not to do that. But you always want to try to innovate. You don't want to stay stagnant. And I think for me, that's one thing that I'll never quite understand about people that get so long in their career and just get complacent. I guess it's easy to get comfortable, but that's not in my DNA. That's not in my circuit wiring. I can't just stay like doing the same thing over and over. I'm constantly having to evolve, not just as a producer, as a performer, as a writer, but as a person. Because one of the reasons why like I'm estranged with some family members is because they stopped evolving. They stopped growing. They said, I'm not going to change. So either you deal with that or I don't know what we do. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to deal with it by saying, I don't need you in my life anymore because it's not helpful. If we're not going to grow together, then I don't need this.
And I think that's one of the most deliberate mind tricks of our society is that literally at any moment you can create whatever the hell you like. There is absolutely, especially in 2026, there's no stopping you from creating whatever you want, whenever you want to do it. I call it a creator's prerogative. Do whatever the hell you want, whenever you want to do it. But again, it's such a deliberate act for us not to even understand that as a possibility or an option for us. So it's always great to have these conversations where there's someone who's, I just did it. And any of the mistakes, quote unquote, for people on audio is actually information. I know how to move different next time, but I wouldn't have known had I not had the experience.
Yeah, and also my grandfather, he worked at General Motors for over 30 years, and he did the same job over and over every day. He was very disciplined in that. But he told me this as a young kid, and it's benefited me a lot, but there's also a detriment to it where he's like, give yourself options. And for me, how I interpret that was like, learn as much as you can about as much as you can. You know what I mean? Always be inquisitive, always be willing to try new things. And I think that's, for the most part, served me well. It's the reason why I come up with wild ideas with my scripts or show ideas and stuff like that for live events and things. And like I said, sometimes it doesn't work, but sometimes it hits. And when it does, like, that's an incredible feeling.
Right. So that's really dope. First, always an honor to our elders who teach us a few things.
Yes,
and then we get to alchemize it because we understand that they also grew up in a different time.
Yep. Trying to explain trying to explain to my grandfather the concept of working at WeWork and like why the company was falling apart. It was just like,
never mind.
Just deadpan. Right. No concept of anything. That's before the dementia kicked in.
Yeah, absolutely. Respect, man. We're talking about the work, and that's the major part of doing anything is the stuff behind it, is making sure that we create exactly what it is that we want. Hopefully, and I know that this is something that we all work through, not studying anybody else but ourselves and what we want to create. But consistency is one of those things that constantly makes us crazy. And especially there comes a point where consistency is attached to external measurement. And I always hate that. Because you put something out, somebody didn't see it or appreciate it or like it, and then that didn't work, and moving on. Yeah. So you shared the consistency matters, and that apologizing when you miss the mark matters too. So how did you learn that lesson?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. Consistency, I learned. Consistency, and also apologizing, I learned from doing the Comedy Outliers show. That was a stand-up showcase. That was a monthly show. I think it was like every third Saturday of the month. And it really became like a family, especially like the first 2 years when it was like this underground like bar show, like in the basement of an Irish pub that like you had to know, about it. But if you were able to come, like you were seeing some of the best up and coming comedians in the game and some of the best comedians at that time in the game. I remember our second show, Wyatt Cenac closed out. Our first year show, this is the lineup. We had Pete Davidson, Michael Che, the homie Jeffrey Joseph, Kate McKinnon was in the audience. It was a huge show, and it was just in the basement of this Irish pub, right? And the people that kept coming that helped it grow, that then led to us doing private events for Yelp and brown paper tickets. They knew when the show would be. They knew it would always be a great show. The line would always be great. They knew that we were having fun hosting the show, and it became a groundswell. And I learned that's how you build a fan base, is by being consistent, by making sure people have a positive experience, by talking to them. That's a big thing I think a lot of talent doesn't realize they have to do. Because you'll see, especially comedians, they'll do their show and just hang out afterwards and be like, that's done, cool. Like, no, you got to mingle with your fans. You got to people find out how they found out about the show, find out what's going to bring them back. What did they like? What did they not like? Sometimes you got to take those hits and learn what you can do better. And I had to do that. There was times where people said maybe they didn't vibe with a certain comic or whatever. They thought it was hurtful. And I was like, okay, I'll keep that in mind. Or sometimes people weren't happy with the prizes, which I was kind of like, is a free show. You got some free, but okay, I'll work on that. Right. But then that became more serious when we were asking people to pay cover. Then I have to really start taking people's feedback because I'm asking them to pay us money so we can pay talent. But at the same time, I have to make sure they're having a show that's worthwhile, making time for. And so that was a formative time for me in my career as a producer, for sure.
For sure. You're learning as you go. And that's all you can do is learn as you move through it. Go ahead. Yeah.
From a podcast standpoint, I would say my Medium Popcorn Movie Review podcast, that was a big learning curve because we had a guest on. Remember the Leslie Jones Ghostbusters movie came out? And we had a guest on who it was a comedian guy I knew, and he kept posting on social, like Facebook, about like why he hated the movie. And he thought it was like stupid, like to reboot it like this. And I was like, hey, come on our podcast. Let's talk about it. Halfway through the podcast, mind you, this guy's foaming at the mouth about how much he hates this cast and the movie and stuff. Halfway through the podcast, he reveals he hasn't seen the movie. Wow. So we're like, we need to have an episode and let's release it. And there's a lot of backlash, as you can imagine, from our fan base on that. A lot of frustration. We had a write-up. It was weird timing. We actually ended up getting interviewed by journalists at RogerEbert.com about our podcast, and they brought up that podcast episode. And so that comedian got thrown under the bus. Like, I didn't deliberately throw him under the bus, but the journalist is like, he did all these things and then revealed that he didn't even see the movie. That was kind of crazy, right? And we're like, yeah, why would you come on the show where we know we go in depth about movies and then not see the movie? Like, you can't hate someone that vehemently and not even try to watch it. Like, I can see if he had walked out and was like, this is so bad, I'm walking out. But he hadn't even tried to give it a chance. And so we talked about that in the interview. It was a whole thing. But yeah, there's been a few times on that podcast where we've had to issue some apologies. You know what I mean? Or like, because we never meant to offend anybody or upset anybody. When you're listening to a podcast, you shouldn't end the episode pissed off unless that's the intention of the episode. You know what I mean? And so that was definitely a learning experience as well. Apologize.
Yeah, listen, people are wild cards.
Yeah, man.
Every last one of us are wild cards, and bringing people on your platform, you never know how it's going to go. I've had some conversations on different podcasts, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be as quickly as I can get through this. And then I'll decide. Again, it's my prerogative, it's my platform, and that's the beauty of owning your own platform as well. But things will happen. Again, it's always important that you are standing on your own foundation already. This one was a wild card episode, but we got plenty others that are right where we want it to be.
Yeah, and that's easier, like especially for Drunk Black History, for me to handle in a live show than it is on a podcast episode. Because podcast episode, it's like, hey, we blocked out an hour for this conversation, right? But after 5 minutes of talking to somebody, like I realized, oh, they didn't go through any of the research I sent them. So I'm basically teaching them about their own topic that they chose. Whereas on a live event, I have the slides playing in the background. I have all the knowledge I need up top, so I can basically make it conversational. Versus on a podcast, especially with the video conferencing tool, is like kind of not the blocker, but it's the barrier, right? It's okay, you're having a harder time reading the body language of me trying to get you without you make it looking crazy, right? Because in live, like, you know, I'll have guests that sometimes maybe they're so drunk. This actually happened at Afros Audio podcast festival. I'm not gonna say who it was, but someone kind of looked at me like, take the wheel. I can't remember stuff. And so that's what I have to do. But like on podcasting, it's tougher.
For sure. That's cool, man. I didn't know about the movie review, but I'm a person who feels like I have a lot of insight. I'm a character study person, and I'm just like, they could have ended that better. The character could have been involved a little more. Like, why?
Bro, getting deeper into the entertainment industry it's been tougher for me watching movies and TV shows too, because I was in a Universal Writers program. So I was out in LA for a year and a half, and I worked on a lot. And so there's so many movies and TV shows I watch now where I'm like, that's a Universal lot. My wife hates it because I'm like, oh, now I'm out of the show, or now I'm out of this movie. You know what I mean? Like, we watched Bel Air. We're watching the last season. They filmed the whole thing on the Universal lot. And so I'm just like, yeah, this isn't Bel Air. There's nothing about this, just the fake set. I don't know. It sucks.
Yeah.
You know, like I think Eminem said when he did 8 Mile, like he can't enjoy movies anymore because he notices all the like issues with D and stuff. Yeah, and I'm like, it changes you. It definitely changes when you do films. Like I've been doing Law and Order, like background acting and stuff, and so like now I know how the sausage is made. I still watch the show, but I'm just like, oh, I know how quickly they filmed this stuff.
Absolutely. No, that's definitely another level of insight. So that's great. And it's always good to bring that to the work, because there are a lot of people out here that are just willy-nilly. Just saying anything, just doing anything without real information and or experience to back it up. But they're still just as loud. And so that's why we think about where we say, listen, there are people out here doing what you want to do with less.
Yes.
And you got it, and you over here hiding.
Yeah.
Right?
Bro, to that point, like if that's some of the biggest advice I can give for anyone listening or watching this episode, man, the people that you think are the gatekeepers, that the decision makers, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. That imposter syndrome stuff, that starts with those people, with the biggest decision makers. So just do your stuff, man. There's no right or wrong to any of this. Like, as long as it's not hurting anybody, like honestly, people do not know what they're doing. Everyone's terrified all the time.
All of the time, man.
Just do it.
Winging it.
Yeah,
but
man.
Learning, if you're doing it right, you're learning as you go as well. I wanted to circle back to something that you brought up earlier this week in Black History, because again, we talk about creators and your own platform, your ownership, and your prerogative. And this is a newer segment that you brought to it. So adding that as a regular segment, what has that changed for you in terms of audience connection and momentum? It's
been dope just seeing Black people celebrating our achievements, celebrating these pioneers and heroes, and people that are breaking through barriers, like whether it's like in sports, entertainment, business. It's incredible, because it's also not that people are going to keep up with like the first Black woman, like a senator, mayor elected in upstate New York or something like that. But being able to use my platform to share those kind of stories is incredible. And seeing people respond to them saying, thank you for sharing this, or just seeing people sharing the videos so the stories keep expanding. I'm all about accessibility and reach. And so that's why I do it, man. Like to just keep elevating these stories. And I'm not looking to go viral or anything like that. I'm just doing it because it's something that fulfills me. That's something that shows the educator in me, like that just fulfills that mission.
And kudos to you for evolving the show as well. There's a lot of times that the format just remains the same for years and years. And people want to do other things, but they're like, I don't know if I should introduce something new or whatever. That's what it's about.
Yeah, that's my old co-host, the issue I had initially. And then a lot of people reminded me, like, he wasn't producing the show. So he's stealing your format, but you're constantly changing it. Every show is not the same. And so I was like, oh yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? Like I got down about, oh, this person's like stealing my concept and stuff versus being like, but the concept's constantly changing because you want to have more audience engagement. You want to make sure that people are paying $20 to come out for this event, that they have an incredible experience where they tell other people. And that groundswell that I was talking about earlier, that continues, you know? And yeah, there's a world where I could be complacent and just follow the same format every city I go to and all that stuff, but I can't do that because that's not fair to the city. That's not fair to the people that are going to be in the audience. We're kicking off the tour in Philly. I'm not going to do the Philly show the same way I'm going to do my New York show, the same way I'm going to do an Austin show, the same way I'm going to do an LA show. It's got to constantly change. That's more work for me. But again, it's about the audience. It's not about me, and it's about these Black heroes and stories more than it is about whether or not I can get a few extra minutes of sleep. You know what I mean?
And honorary mention to curiosity and our addiction to challenge. This desire to feel. Sometimes it's like, why are you doing this and making this a little bit more complicated? It's actually, the challenge is what gets the people going. I enjoyed that part of it, putting these puzzle pieces together that once didn't seem like it was going to happen. And this, what you just mentioned, and something that you mentioned earlier in the episode, brings to mind this Howard Thurman quote that I really love. And there's two questions you have to ask yourself. One is, where am I going? And two is, who will go with me? And if you ever get those in reverse, you're in trouble. And it's this thing where you have been able to create and people have come, but people can also go. And you will still be here doing the work. And how important that is for a lot of people to really understand that it's you first. Put your work out there. And if people come, they come. I can testify to that. Afros and Audio, people came in, they went. But I still had to stand in it. I continue to do the work.
Yeah. In my office right here, I have a quote from Tyler, the Creator. Let me turn so I can read it because it says, niggas ain't gonna fuck with it at first, but niggas never fuck with the good shit first. They always sleep on it, and then you show them throughout the process. You know what I mean? And then above me, it says, don't give up before the miracle. It's all about resiliency. It's all about consistency. It's about staying true to yourself, and there will be an audience. It may not be the audience size you're hoping for or you want, but you, as an artist, if you're doing anything creative, there will be someone who messes with it. And even if it's just you, even if you just feel happy about what you're doing,
that's it.
That means more than anything. There's so many people that go through life that they'll do anything that makes them feel alive, makes them feel like they have a purpose on this world. And we only have one life. To our knowledge, we only have one life. How would I want to waste it where I'm on my deathbed? I'm like, oh, these shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or I didn't do anything. Like, wow, or I stuck to these old beliefs. We talked earlier about guidance from our elders and such. But culturally, sometimes there's elders that hold you back from your greatness. They're like, you have to follow tradition and take care of me when I'm in my old age. I can't take care of myself, even though maybe I traumatized the shit out of you throughout your whole life. And I have no remorse about that because that's how I was raised. You know, this generational trauma as well. And I'm thankful to be part of a generation that's, no, we're going to therapy and we're not down with that. Really fully supporting that. I'm not going to sacrifice me fulfilling my purpose in this world because you didn't plan accordingly or you made decisions that put you in a place where there's no one in your corner right now. And that's an unfortunate thing to have to like share and discuss and stuff. But at the same time, like, we can't hold others back from fulfilling their greatness or making them feel that they lived a life worth living. That's not fair to anybody.
And there's this theme of disruption that I'm hearing from you, not only in the work that you're doing, but also in the generational pathologies. And I know we've talked about that in another conversation. And it is so important to blow up the status quo or the normal way of being, because it hasn't served to support us. And what doesn't serve or support us controls us in every way. And this is the work. And the work is going as far as you can possibly go to see who you can be in this world, because without that, it's just impossible. It really is.
Yeah, and And like, even when people don't quite get it, there's people that can still appreciate it. Like I remember when I turned in my first draft to my mentor for the script I was writing at university, to my mentor, Malcolm D. Lee. He did like the Best Man series, and shout out to the whole team of Black Male Productions. And I had my first meeting, he was giving me notes. And I had this fight scene where like Billy Ocean's playing in the background, because my nana like just got me to Billy Ocean. I just thought it would be really fun to have the song playing. And he was like, yeah, man, that was really weird. But I'll give it to you. You put stuff in the script I've never seen. And for me, that meant the world. Someone who's been in the business since the 90s tell me that I put something in there that they had never seen before. And it wasn't like, I mean, what the fuck are you doing? You shouldn't even be here. I shouldn't be talking to you thing. But it was like, you got a unique vision, man. And I was like, oh, it kept pushing me as I was doing my rewrites and stuff, you know?
Absolutely. We will continue status quo work if we continue status quo work. That's it.
Yeah.
I always tell people when I coach, anyone who will listen, the wildest thing, the wildest dream, do that one. The one that you're like, I don't know if they can handle this right now. I don't know if this is going to work. That's the one. Like all the ones that you're trying to play safe and polite and all that, we've seen it before. It's already been done. Yeah,
man. Think outside the box. Do something different. Like, F it. who like, the only person that could stop you was you.
Yeah.
Honestly. And that's such an important thing to say, especially nowadays with all the technology that's available, but also just like I said, no one knows what they're doing. So just do it.
Absolutely. And podcasting is one of those playgrounds in a way that there are so many different ways that we can innovate and shift this industry. But there's a formula. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say, but I think the thing that you and I particularly have in common, like within all of our conversations we've had over the past few months, which I'm incredibly grateful for. I'm so grateful that we got to connect through Afros and Audios and all the work that you did there. And shout out to your Sun Ra episode of Drunk Black History. That was a lot of fun. Is that we're constantly pushing ourselves to learn, like we're lifelong learners. And I think that means a lot, because you mentioned just a few minutes ago about, your coaching, right? I'm sure it's so frustrating for you when you're telling people like, hey, this is what I think you should do, given like what you've shared about your strengths, growth areas, blah, blah, blah. And then they don't do that. There's so many people that are like, for Drunk Black History, how do you get all these people here? What's the secret? Blah, 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 blah. And I tell them, I'm like, one of the biggest secrets, and I share it all the time, is I spend hours just posting online on any free event calendar I can. Hours. In whatever market I'm going to, like for Philly, I did it for a few hours. For LA, I'm going to do it for a few hours. For New York, I'm doing it for 2 days because I have so many New York shows. I'm like, that's how I get people. Like in New Orleans, we had a show in New Orleans before we came to Baltimore for your podcast festival, right? In New Orleans, I was posting on everything. I posted on Reddit for the first time. I never post on Reddit. I had a couple from Detroit, Michigan come to the show because they happened to be in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, like we get to a legendary space. The dude drop in. I get to learn some Black history. It wouldn't have happened if I hadn't posted some random Reddit thread, or a whole table sold out because they saw the posting I did on some random Facebook group that had like New Orleans events shit.
Yeah. Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That's something that people, and I'm like, they're ready to quit. And I'm like, but you haven't exhausted 10% of your opportunity here. Like,
quit before the miracle.
Exhausted anything at all. Like, at all. You just tried the things that you know about. And granted, we can only do what we know to do, but go deeper. What else can I do? That's 100%. The curiosity piece, right? That being curious. Because if we can answer right now, then the answer is I'm fucked. But if you can get curious about it, you know what I mean? Then you can see the other opportunities rather than, oh, I'm fucked. It's important that we bring this level of it to the work. And so I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing. And the possibility that you're creating, not only in the presentation of the work, because people see it and they're like, that's wonderful, and I don't know how you did it, but it's, you don't know. And you don't know the night terrors and or the work that I do in order to get here. And so it is important to have these conversations so people can contextualize what it looks like. Yeah. I used to have the night terrors when I first started doing the show by myself, because I'm going on big stages that I'm used to sharing with someone else. Right? Like in stages in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. And Black folks, we take shit very seriously. If you're going to make me come out and spend money, I want to have a good time. And I don't want to disappoint people. I'm a big people pleaser. And so I take that very seriously. But I've been freak out, have anxiety attacks and stuff. And now I've been doing it for years. I'm like, I got this. I can do this. That's the other thing. That's it. We can only see ourselves as far as we can see and experiences. And that is the beauty of stretching and stretching. Now there's things that I did
Absolutely.
in the beginning. I was like, don't even ask me to do that because I can't, one,
Yeah.
and never two.
Yeah.
And now it's like, what? It doesn't matter, but you have to start. That's how you get in the game. So that's what's so important about conversations like this. So as I close up this conversation, and I really appreciate the time that you share with us today, if you could change one thing,
I appreciate you.
Sure, thank you. If you could change one thing about the podcast industry to better support creators, what would be one shift that you'd like to see?
Stop giving so much attention and accolades to the biggest names in podcasting right now. Like the people under the podcasts aren't bad. Like Conan O'Brien's podcast, I actually quite enjoy. I enjoy his interviews and stuff. But like immediately, as soon as these actors and like famous comedians started podcasting, they immediately shot to the top of the charts. Obviously, name recognition, but then all the accolades, all the award nominations are all these people that have the biggest agents and people and reps in the industry. And so all like the little guys that are really doing the work that have been pioneers in their spaces, respective spaces, are getting clawed out because no one's going to want to watch a televised iHeartRadio podcast award and want to see like little guys like us doing what we're doing versus seeing the big stars that are nominated. You know what I mean? That's incredibly frustrating. That's where all the money is in marketing and everything like that, because it is such an oversaturated market right now. But there are opportunities. Like I get opportunities for sponsorship and stuff like that on Drunk Black History, but that's something that is really frustrating, is that all these big names just popped into the industry just 2 or 3 years ago and basically sucked up all the air, I feel. You know, that's when all these publications start saying, oh, podcasting is oversaturated and like the bubble's going to burst and things. Y'all weren't saying that when we were over here trying to figure out like how do you connect multiple snowball microphones into your mixer and like all these, it's all that stuff was set up for these people. By the time they got into the game, they weren't learning how all this stuff works. They weren't learning how do you edit a podcast. And I think that's something that I think is underappreciated now, is like the people that really started like having to learn this like through trial by fire.
Yeah, you're right. And one thing I'll say about celebrity podcasts and big name podcasts is that after like say 5 years now, we could stop saying what a podcast is. People started recognizing, okay, I understand what a podcast is now that I see the people that I like to see doing it. But now, recognizing that independent podcasters make up over a majority of the industry. So without us, there is no engine. And then also thinking about the podcasters that are celebrity. For some of them, this is simply another medium in order to make their bread or to go into. It's not something they're like, oh, I want to create a podcast. It's something that has been presented to them as another way for visibility, relevancy, and all this sort of thing. So that care and concern isn't very much there, which means that they're temporary in the space. They will be here for as long as it works for them, and then they'll leave. Meanwhile, we're still here. And yeah, it's definitely an opportunity for our industry to recognize that. Will they? I don't know. Will it take an inward a rebellion to make it happen? But that's another conversation for another time. I appreciate your thoughts on it, for sure. So before I let you go, please tell anyone if there's anything that you want to promote right now, so ask for support, and then let people know where to find you.
Absolutely. Always promoting Drunk Black History. Folks can follow us on Instagram at official Drunk Black History. It's all spelled out. Again, official Drunk Black History. Or you can follow me personally at Frodo_Blackens on Instagram. DrunkBlackHistory.com for our tour dates. We're kicking off on Sunday, February 1st in Philadelphia. Then we're going multiple shows in New York. Then we're going to be in LA, Austin, Boston, Newark, and we're working on some other dates throughout the rest of the year. And then June's going to be another huge month with celebrating Juneteenth and everything. So again, DrunkBlackHistory.com for all those tour dates and tickets, and just to follow us on our social media. The podcast available on all podcast applications, Drunk Black History. It'll pop up immediately, and you can check out Talib's episode on Sun Ra. We got a lot of great guests on there. A lot from the Afros Audio Podcast Festival that I met. So really looking forward to those episodes coming out soon too.